The moment I stepped back into the rich clan, I felt it, eyes watching me, whispers stopping mid-sentence. Like everyone already knew a secret I wasn't supposed to hear. But the real shock wasn't the fake Heir. It was his girls. 3 of them. Perfect smiles. Perfect lies. And all 3 walked toward me at the same time, like I was the prize they'd been waiting for. One touched my arm. Another leaned too close. The third whispered, "You must be new here, we can show you around." I knew their game from the first glance. Their sweetness wasn't affection. It was fear. Fear of losing the power they earned by standing beside a fake king. So I stayed quiet, calm, watching. Because when people think you're clueless, that's when they reveal the most. And just when they thought their seduction was working, karma stepped into the room. I never thought I would step foot inside the clan mansion again. Not after everything that happened. Not after the way they treated me. But life has a strange way of circling back, especially when you carry a truth that everyone else tried so hard to bury. The day I returned, the sky was gray. Not stormy. Not calm. Just heavy. The kind of sky that makes you feel like something important is about to happen. My footsteps echoed softly on the stone driveway as I walked toward the entrance. The mansion looked the same. Huge, polished, silent. But something in the air felt different. More tense. More watchful. Servants paused when they saw me. Not out of respect. Out of recognition. Like they were remembering stories they weren't supposed to talk about. I kept walking. I didn't greet anyone. I didn't need to. I wasn't here for them. I was here because the truth had matured. And lies, they rot if you leave them long enough. As I stepped past the entrance, I saw him. The Heir. The one the clan spent years polishing like some precious stone. The one wearing clothes he didn't earn and holding power that didn't belong to him. He was laughing with his friends when he noticed me. His smile froze. Just for a second. But long enough. "Back already?" he asked, forcing confidence into his voice. I gave a calm nod. No emotion. No anger. No reaction. Because that's what scared people like him the most. Silence. He turned away quickly, pretending I didn't matter. But his eyes, they kept flicking back toward me. Nervous. Uneasy. Threatened. I walked deeper inside, thinking I would be left alone. But that's when they appeared. 3 girls. All connected to him in different ways. Not officially. Not publicly. But everyone in the clan knew they orbited around him like desperate satellites. They appeared almost like they rehearsed it. Same timing. Same smiles. Same subtle calculation in their eyes. The first one, Isla, approached with soft steps. She always carried this gentle look, like she was too innocent to be part of the games everyone else played. "You're finally back?" she said, twisting a strand of her hair. Her voice was sweet. Too sweet. Before I could answer, the second girl, Rida, came closer. She had confidence in her walk. Sharp eyeliner. Sharp smile. Sharp intentions. "You look different," she murmured. More mature. The third girl, Mina, stood behind them. Quiet. Observant. Her eyes kept scanning me like she was trying to read a chapter she'd never seen before. Isla stepped closer. "Do you need help settling in? We can show you around." Ryder leaned a bit too close. "Or maybe you want company. You must feel lonely." Mina finally spoke, voice soft but pointed. He wasn't this interesting before. I didn't react. I simply watched them. Imagine walking into a place where people once ignored you, and suddenly the ones who never spared you a glance act like you're the center of the room. Some people might feel flattered. Some might fall for the attention. But I wasn't here for validation. And I wasn't fooled, because I knew exactly why they were acting like this. I had returned with a truth that could break the Heir's world. And they depended on his world. Their suddenly sweet smiles were an attraction. They were fear in disguise, a fear that if I spoke, everything they built, their relationships, their reputation, their security, would collapse. So they weren't flirting. They were protecting themselves. I decided not to push them away. Not yet. Instead, I gave them a small, calm smile. The kind of smile that reveals nothing. The kind that makes people curious and scared. Instantly, Isla's face lit up. Ryda's posture softened. Mina's eyes narrowed, analyzing deeper. See, Ryda whispered. He's not cold. They thought they were winning. They thought I was responding. They had no idea I had already figured out every piece of their strategy. The fake Heir was watching us from afar. I felt his jealousy burning from across the hall, not because he cared about the girls, but because he feared losing control, losing attention, losing his image, losing the illusion he built. I knew all of this, and still, I let the scene unfold. Sometimes silence is more powerful than confrontation. Sometimes watching people reveal their true nature teaches you more than any argument. Sometimes letting a lie breathe is the only way to make it choke itself. So I stood there, listening to their soft voices, their attempt at charm, their carefully crafted sweetness. And all the while, inside me, there was only one thought: let them play their game. Their real battle hasn't even started. Because this time, I wasn't the powerless boy who left the clan. I wasn't the quiet outsider. I wasn't the forgotten relative. I was the one carrying the truth that could destroy everything. And karma was already awake, waiting, watching, choosing its moment. The first few hours in the mansion felt like a delicate dance. Everyone acted normal, but I could feel tension curling in the air, like smoke waiting to fill a room. Isla kept hovering nearby, pretending to help me with my bags. Her voice was soft, sweet, carefully measured. You must be tired from the journey. Let me help you settle in. I nodded lightly, not because I needed help, but because I wanted to watch. Ryda, on the other hand, didn't bother with subtlety. She leaned against a marble staircase, arms crossed, eyes sharp, watching my every move like a predator tracking prey. You've changed, she said, almost as a statement, almost as a challenge. I simply smiled. Calm. That small smile seemed to bother her more than any argument could. Mina, quiet as ever, was a ghost in the background. She didn't approach. She didn't touch. But her eyes, they followed me like they were searching for the cracks in my armor. It was obvious to me now. Each of them had a role. Each of them had a purpose. Each of them was trying to seduce me. But not for love, for survival. Isla, the sweet innocent. Ryda, the bold and daring. Mina, the quiet observer. And the fake Heir? He was a director of this little theater. I let them do their thing. I didn't rush. I didn't react. I simply observed. It was fascinating, watching people act in ways they thought were invisible, hearing the lies in their tones, seeing the small flickers of fear behind their eyes. I sat in the drawing room later that evening, watching the sun dip behind the tall mansion walls. Isla brought me tea. Would you like sugar? She asked softly. I shook my head. Her eyes flickered, almost imperceptibly, like she had expected me to say yes. Ryda entered shortly after, leaning casually against the doorway. You really don't change, she said, her voice dripping with something that was neither flirtation nor friendliness. Something sharper. I thought the years away might soften you. I didn't answer, because answers sometimes give power to people who don't deserve it. Mina finally stepped forward, holding a small tray of snacks. Her movements were precise, careful, and almost mechanical. I hope you don't mind me trying to be polite, she said. I nodded again. Her hand shook just slightly, and I noticed it immediately. The first crack in their perfect performance. That's when I realized something important. Fear is the strongest seduction. They weren't trying to charm me. They were trying to control me with tension. And tension is contagious. It forces people to reveal themselves. So I let them continue. Isla's soft voice, Ryda's bold gaze, Mina's quiet observation. I didn't speak much. I just let them speak. The Heir noticed the shift immediately. He frowned. His usual confidence wavered. I could see the calculations forming in his head. He didn't like the way the girls were suddenly performing for me, instead of him. Later that night, I walked through the grand halls of the mansion alone. The chandeliers reflected in the polished floor. The silence was comforting. I remembered how lonely this place used to feel. how much of myself I had left behind here. And yet, I wasn't here for nostalgia. I was here for closure. The girls' games had begun, but the real game had barely started. I knew it. I felt it. Because when people play for power, when people smile to hide fear, the first person to stay calm is often the one who wins. I stopped in front of the mirror. For a moment, I looked at my reflection. Not the boy who had left, not the outsider, but someone who had returned with purpose, with clarity, with patience. I let the image sink in. Then I whispered to myself, almost like a promise, let them play their game. I'll let karma handle the rest. And as I left the room, I could already hear the soft footsteps behind me, the beginning of the seduction, the lure of attention, the tension in the air. I smiled softly, because this time, I wasn't the one being tested. I was the one watching. And the game was only just beginning. The next morning, the mansion felt heavier, not because of the walls or the size of the rooms, but because of what lingered in the air, a tension that was impossible to ignore. Isla was the first to appear in the breakfast room. She smiled as if nothing had changed, but I could see the way her hand trembled slightly as she poured tea. Her soft voice, her calculated kindness, everything was part of the act. Ryder arrived soon after, leaning casually against the doorway. Her bold gaze flicked between me and the air, and I could tell she was trying to assert some sort of control over the situation. The heir, meanwhile, pretended to be absorbed in his own breakfast, but his eyes betrayed him. Every glance he threw toward me was sharp, anxious, the first crack in his polished facade. Mina was quiet, as always. She sat at the corner of the table, observing, but I caught her eyes narrowing slightly when the heir spoke to me. She noticed something no one else did, the way his voice wavered, the way his confident posture faltered when he saw my calm expression. It was beautiful in a strange way, watching people scramble when they thought they were untouchable. The first words exchanged weren't mine. Isla spoke softly, tilting her head. You really didn't change, not even a little. I looked at her, smiled faintly. Something's don't need to change, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried weight. The weight of truth they weren't ready to face. Ryder scoffed lightly, leaning forward. Funny, you've come back as if you belong here. Do you even know what you're stepping into? I met her gaze evenly. I know exactly what I'm stepping into, and I know exactly what's been hidden from me. That silence, that pause that hit harder than any accusation could. The heir's face lost color. He tried to intervene. Don't start, it's nothing like that. But his words faltered. I had already guessed what he feared. The girls around him weren't trying to seduce me out of interest. They were trying to control me, to protect him, to save themselves. And he wasn't ready to lose the power he thought he had. Isla leaned in, smiling sweetly. You've always been too stubborn. Do you really think you can just return and change everything? I kept my tone calm. Not change everything. Just let the truth be seen. Mina finally spoke, almost a whisper. You really aren't afraid? Her question wasn't about me. It was about the heir. About what would happen if the mask fell. I shook my head slightly. Fear doesn't matter when you know the truth. The heir slammed his fist lightly on the table. The sound echoed. Everyone froze. This isn't how it works, he said, his voice shaking. That was it. The first crack in his armor. The moment I had been waiting for. I leaned forward slightly, voice calm but piercing. You've been hiding behind lies for too long, and everyone around you knows it. You thought your little world was untouchable, but nothing stays hidden forever. Isla's soft smile faded, replaced by a flicker of worry. Ryder's confident posture stiffened. Even Mina's quiet gaze sharpened, calculating what would happen next. I realized something in that moment. They all depended on him, and if he fell, they would fall too. It wasn't about seduction anymore. It was about survival, and I was the storm they hadn't prepared for. The heir's hand shook slightly now. He tried to speak again, but no words came out, because the truth doesn't need explanations. It doesn't need justification. And in that silence, I finally understood the power of watching, the power of patience, the power of letting people reveal themselves through their own actions. I stood up slowly, giving them all a last calm look. You can continue your games, but don't forget, I've already seen everything. The girls flinched, and the heir's confident mask broke completely. For the first time, the mansion felt different. Not just heavy, but alive. Alive with tension. Alive with the knowledge that the game had changed. I left the breakfast room, knowing that this was just the beginning. The seduction, the lies, the hidden agendas, all of it would unravel soon. And when it did, karma would arrive exactly as it should. The days stretched long and heavy. Every corridor I walked through felt alive with tension. Whispers behind closed doors. Glares that followed me as if I were a threat to the entire mansion. And I was. The heir hadn't spoken much since breakfast. He moved like a man carrying invisible weights, glancing over his shoulder, adjusting his tie, trying desperately to maintain some air control. But I could see it in his eyes, the cracks widening with every minute. Isla approached me in the library that afternoon. Her movements were careful, deliberate. She carried a book, pretending it was an excuse to talk. Her voice, soft as ever, was sweet but measured. You always seem calm, even when everyone else is tense. I smiled faintly. That's because I don't react to fear. She froze for a moment, then laughed lightly. Fear doesn't scare you, but power does. Doesn't it? I shook my head. Not if the power is built on lies. Ryder appeared almost immediately after. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Her bold eyes scrutinized me, trying to find the weakness she assumed I had. You're dangerous, she said, almost like a warning. I only nodded. Mina lingered in the background, watching, silent, calculating. Her quiet energy was almost more threatening than the other's words. She didn't speak yet, but her gaze said enough. The heir's world is fragile, and you know it, and I did, because I had returned with more than a quiet presence. I had returned with clarity, with understanding, with the patience to let everyone reveal themselves. The heir thought he controlled the house, the girls, the stories, but he had underestimated time. He had underestimated the truth. He had underestimated karma. By late afternoon, the tension had reached a peak. I was in the main hall, studying the paintings and the quiet luxury, when I heard footsteps approaching. Not soft, not careful, deliberate. It was the heir. His eyes were sharp, his voice trembling with anger he couldn't hide. You've been watching too much. You don't belong here. You can't. I raised a hand slightly to stop him. Calm down. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to let the truth speak for itself. He shook his head, pacing. You think you can just show up and ruin everything I built? I looked at him evenly, voice calm, steady. Everything you built is already cracking. And the girls, they know it too. At that, his face went pale. The sudden shift in atmosphere was almost tangible. Isla, Ryder, and Mina had been watching from the stairs, pretending to be uninterested, but their eyes betrayed them. They were startled, worried, unsure. I walked slowly toward the heir, every step measured, deliberate. He backed up slightly, almost stumbling over the edge of a rug. You don't understand, he began. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You relied on fear, on charm, on false appearances. But fear and lies can't last forever. The heir's hand shook now. He tried to steady himself, to regain control, but the calm in my tone, the certainty in my stance, it was like a mirror reflecting his own weakness back at him. The girls stepped closer. Isla's soft voice was now tinged with uncertainty. Maybe he's right. Ryder's bold gaze faltered. Don't listen to him, it's a trap. Mina, still silent, had the sharpest look of all. Her eyes moved between us, calculating. And in that calculation, I could see the realization forming. The heir had lost their complete trust. They were questioning him quietly, subtly, and that's all it took for his confidence to crumble. I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice low, soft, and deliberate. You can't hide behind them anymore. Not the girls. Not anyone. The truth will out, and you'll have to face it. At that, he finally broke. The heir's chest heaved. He tried to speak, but no words came. He was unprepared for this, for the inevitability of the truth. And that's when I realized the power of patience. The games the girls had tried to play, the seduction, the distractions, all of it crumbled under the weight of clarity. Karma, silent but relentless, had begun to move. I left the hall with the softest smile, almost invisible, knowing that the first major fracture had occurred. The air had felt the first taste of panic. The girls had glimpsed their own vulnerability. And the mansion felt different now. It wasn't just heavy. It was alive with anticipation, alive with the knowledge that the real reckoning was still coming. And I was ready for it. Because sometimes you don't have to fight. You just have to wait. You just have to watch. And let karma do the rest. The next day arrived with a weight I could almost feel in the air. The mansion didn't just look grand. It felt tense, fragile, like glass stretched too thin. Every step I took echoed, reminding me that nothing here was as stable as it seemed. The air was restless. He paced the corridors, glancing nervously at the girls. Isla, Rita, and Mina all had shifted subtly. Their usual performances faltered. I could see it in their eyes. The smallest hesitation, the flicker of doubt. Breakfast was tense. Isla's soft smile had faded into careful neutrality. She poured tea with a precision that was almost mechanical, her hands tight around the handle. Rita, bold as ever, kept her usual sharp glances, but she no longer looked at me directly. Instead, she watched the air, measuring his reactions. Mina remained quiet, observing silently, her sharp gaze calculating every nuance. The air finally lost control. He slammed his hand on the table, making the cups rattle. I can't keep pretending this isn't happening, he shouted. His voice cracked. Every syllable carried panic, desperation, and fear. The girls flinched slightly. They weren't used to seeing him like this. I remained calm, silent, watching, pretending. I asked softly, "Is that what you call it?" He froze. "You don't understand. Everything I've done, everything I built, was for this clan. I had to maintain order." I tilted my head slightly, voice gentle but firm. Order built on lies is not order. It's a fragile illusion waiting to break. Isla looked down, fidgeting with her cup. Ryda's bold mask was slipping. Even Mina's silence carried tension. I could see the realization dawning on them. The heir was not invincible. Their safety depended on his power, and his power was crumbling. "Why are you so calm?" the heir demanded, voice trembling. "Don't you care? Don't you feel anything?" I shook my head lightly. "I care about the truth, not the lies you cling to." He staggered back, like my words had physically hit him. You don't understand what it's like," he shouted. "Do you know what it's like to have everything at stake?" I took a step closer, still calm, still deliberate. "Yes, I know what it's like to lose everything. And I know what it's like to watch people around you crumble because of lies." The girls shifted uncomfortably. Isla's soft expression showed fear. Ryda's sharp gaze now revealed uncertainty. Mina's quiet calculation was sharper than ever. The heir's panic escalated. He tried to speak again, but the words faltered. His control was gone. The facade was cracking. And then it happened. The first real confrontation. Isla, trembling slightly, spoke. I didn't think it would be like this. I thought we were protecting him, protecting everyone." Ryda's bold voice wavered as she added, "We thought we were keeping things under control, but maybe we were just lying to ourselves." Mina finally spoke, her quiet voice sharp and precise. "You all underestimated him, and underestimated what the truth can do." The air froze. His face went pale. He looked around at the girls, his supposed allies, and realized they no longer fully trusted him, and he couldn't lie his way out anymore. I stepped closer, voice calm, deliberate. "You wanted me to fall for the games, but I've seen everything from the start. Every smile, every soft word, every calculated glance. And now you see what happens when lies are left unchecked." The girls' expressions shifted further. Their fear was now clear. The heir's panic had reached a breaking point. I didn't want this," he shouted. "You don't understand. I had no choice." I shook my head slightly, voice soft but firm. "You always have a choice. It's just easier to hide behind others and pretend the truth doesn't matter. The Heir's shoulders slumped. For the first time, he looked small, vulnerable, human. The girls watched silently, absorbing the weight of the moment. No one spoke. The mansion was heavy with tension, with realization. And in that silence, I understood something crucial. This was the moment Karma had been waiting for. Not loud, not dramatic, but inevitable. The Heir sank into a chair, face buried in his hands. Isla leaned back, her soft expression replaced with a mixture of guilt and fear. Ryda's boldness faded, replaced with uncertainty. Mina, quiet as ever, kept her eyes on me, acknowledging that the game had shifted irrevocably. I let them sit with it, let them feel it, because sometimes the most powerful thing isn't confrontation. It's letting people face the consequences of their own actions. I walked away slowly, leaving the room heavy with truth. Every step echoed. Every heartbeat carried the weight of what had just happened. And for the first time in years, the mansion felt alive, not with luxury, but with reality, with accountability, with Karma quietly, patiently, moving into place. The mansion had never felt so heavy. Not the weight of its grandeur, not the chill of polished marble, but the weight of truth pressing down on every corner. The Heir didn't speak much anymore. He wandered from room to room, fingers trailing along surfaces as if trying to anchor himself to reality. The girls followed, but their usual confidence had vanished. They were quiet, tense, unsure. Even Mina, always the observer, had an edge of nervous calculation in her eyes. I walked through the halls deliberately, every step measured, every glance intentional. The mansion, which had once felt like a fortress of power for the Heir, now felt fragile, like glass stretched thin, ready to shatter with the slightest pressure. It started with Isla. She approached me in the drawing room, her soft smile gone, replaced with hesitation. I didn't know it would be like this, she whispered. Her hands twisted nervously. We thought we were doing what was right. I studied her quietly. You were protecting a lie, I said softly. Not the truth. Not anyone. Just a story someone wanted you to believe. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked rapidly, forcing them back. Ryda appeared behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. You can't just show up and make us feel guilty, she said sharply, but her voice cracked slightly. Even boldness has its limits. Mina stepped into the room last. She didn't speak. She never did when she didn't need to. Her gaze alone carried judgment, a silent acknowledgement that the balance of power had shifted. The Heir watched from the doorway, small, defeated, powerless in a way he had never been before. For the first time, I saw him not as a fake heir, not as a manipulator, but as a man who had lost everything because he had built his life on lies. And the mansion, the clan, everyone inside it, was finally facing the truth. Later that day, the Heir confronted me alone. His voice was low, unsteady, trembling with the weight of his panic. You think you won? He demanded. Do you realize what you're doing? I shook my head slowly. I'm not winning. I'm letting the truth win. Karma doesn't need my help. It just needs patience. He slumped into a chair. I can't lose them. They've depended on me. I've depended on them. I stepped closer, calm but deliberate. You depended on fear. You depended on appearances. And now you see what happens when that foundation cracks. His hands trembled. He looked at me, eyes wide, searching for something. Why aren't you afraid? Fear isn't power, I said softly. Truth is. The girl's position shifted subtly in the background. Isla kept her gaze downward, twisting her fingers nervously. Ryda's arms fell to her sides, her boldness fading into hesitation. Mina's silence carried judgment sharper than any words could. It was beautiful in a strange, heavy way. Watching people realize the illusions they had built around themselves were finally unraveling. By evening, the tension had escalated into quiet chaos. The girls no longer attempted to seduce, charm, or manipulate me. Their energy had shifted entirely. They were nervous, calculating, unsure of their own place in the clan. The Heir's confidence was gone. He wandered through the halls, gripping the railings, his footsteps heavy with doubt. I watched them all carefully, not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because the collapse had a rhythm. It was fascinating, watching the slow unraveling of control, the quiet disintegration of carefully built facades, and the first hints of real accountability. The Heir finally spoke again, voice almost a whisper. I never thought it would end like this. I let the silence answer, because silence speaks louder than any argument. And in that silence, the weight of the truth settled over the mansion like a storm cloud. That night, I walked the halls alone. The chandeliers glimmered faintly in the dim light. The echoes of past laughter and whispered schemes seemed distant now. Everything had changed. The Heir, the girls, even the servants, they all knew the balance of power had shifted. They had seen the first real cracks. And they understood, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same. I paused in front of a mirror. The reflection staring back at me was calm, patient, unshakable. Not the boy who had left, not the outsider, but someone who had returned to witness the consequences of truth. And somewhere in the mansion, karma was quietly, relentlessly, finishing what had begun. The Heir would never recover the illusion of control. The girls would no longer play their games as they had before. And I was simply the observer, the patient witness of what everyone else had ignored. The collapse was not loud, not dramatic. It was quiet, steady, unavoidable, and the mansion, heavy with tension and revelation, felt alive for the first time in years. Alive with accountability, alive with the knowledge that the story was far from over. But the foundation had already been broken. The mansion felt different that morning. Not quiet, not tense, but heavy with the weight of inevitability. The Heir moved like a man trying to hold on to air. Every glance, every gesture carried panic. He no longer commanded the rooms. He no longer held the girls' attention. Even the servants moved with caution, sensing the fragile balance had shifted. I walked through the halls slowly, observing. This was the moment everything would reveal itself. The moment karma, patient and silent, would fully arrive. Isla approached me first. Her hands were trembling, her voice soft. I didn't know. I thought I was helping him. Her eyes welled up. You never taught us the truth. We only followed. I nodded slowly. It's not about blame. It's about realizing what was real and what was a lie. It's about owning the consequences of your actions. Rida appeared behind her. Bold, confident Rida, now unsure, vulnerable. We thought he was protecting everyone, she said. But now, everything feels wrong. We've been trapped in his lies. Even Mina, the quiet observer, spoke at last. Her voice, low but firm, carried judgment and clarity. We all made choices. We all played our parts. And now, the consequences are here. The Heir had been watching us from across the room. His face pale, lips trembling, jaw tight. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Because he knew. He finally understood that his control was gone. I took a step forward, calm, deliberate. You relied on fear. You relied on appearances. You thought no one would notice. But the truth always surfaces. The Heir sank into a chair. He buried his face in his hands, as if the shame and panic could be absorbed into his body. And for the first time, he looked small, not powerful, not in control, just human. The girls shifted uneasily. They no longer attempted charm, manipulation, or seduction. Their games had dissolved. The truth had won. I didn't know, the Heir whispered finally. I thought I was doing what was right. I thought, his voice broke. I thought I could protect everyone. I shook my head slightly. Protection built on lies is not protection. It's imprisonment. For you, for them, for everyone. Isla's soft voice trembled. We didn't understand. We didn't see. Tears ran down her face now, freely. I'm sorry. Rida, standing stiffly, lowered her head. I thought I was strong. I thought I could manage everything. But we all fell for it. Mina's silence was sharp, cutting through the room. Her gaze moved from me to the Heir. Now you see. All of it. And there's no hiding from it anymore. The heir's face lifted slightly, pale, exhausted, defeated. For the first time, he truly understood the weight of what he had done. The lies, the manipulations, the fake appearances, they had all collapsed. I took a step back, letting the moment breathe, not a word more, because words now would only dilute the weight of reality. The mansion was silent, but alive with the presence of truth. The tension, once sharp and threatening, now hung heavy with reflection. Everyone, Heir girls, even the quiet staff, felt it. The world they had built on illusions was gone, and all that remained was reality. I realized something then. Karma isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's patient, quiet, unstoppable. It doesn't need to punish. It simply allows the truth to surface, and everyone must face it in their own way. The heir slumped fully into his chair, shaking slightly. I never thought I'd be like this, he admitted quietly. You came back and everything changed. I smiled faintly, calm, measured. You didn't change it. The truth did. Karma did. All I did was watch. Isla, Rida, and Mina stepped back, processing the moment. They no longer pretended to be innocent. They no longer tried to seduce, charm, or control. They had seen the consequences. And now, they would have to live with them. The mansion, once a fortress of lies and pretense, now felt almost peaceful. Not because everything was fixed, not because the heir had regained power, but because the first step toward truth had been taken, because the illusions had finally been shattered. I turned to leave. Every step I took echoed softly, but it carried weight. I didn't look back. There was nothing left for me there except observation. And as I walked toward the exit, I felt it. The calm satisfaction that comes not from revenge, but from letting the natural order of truth and consequence unfold. Karma had arrived. Slowly, silently, completely. The mansion remained behind me, heavy with lessons, filled with people who had finally seen themselves. And I knew the story was over, not with drama, not with chaos, but with clarity. The heir would rebuild, if he could. The girls would reconsider their paths. And the truth, patient, relentless, unstoppable, would remain. Sometimes the most powerful victories are quiet. Sometimes watching is enough. And sometimes karma does all the work. I stepped outside, feeling the sun on my face. The air felt lighter now. The mansion, grand and imposing behind me, was no longer a fortress of lies. It was a reminder that truth always comes, and that karma always finds its way.